Welcome to Lost Relation Chronicles.
Hey, I'm Gavin. I don't even remember when her words stopped hurting and started becoming just background noise. It's been about a year since my twin brother was murdered, and the healing has been slow, but I'm making progress. What I didn't expect was how much things would change between Claire and me. Last Tuesday, I was folding laundry in our bedroom, something I'd been doing more often to help ease Claire's workload. I had just finished folding a towel when she walked in. "Seriously, Gavin? That's how you fold towels?" she said with contempt. "It looks like a 5-year-old did it." I sighed, my shoulders sagging. "I'm just trying to help, Claire." "Well, you're not. You're just making more work for me," she snapped, yanking the towel from the pile and refolding it with sharp, irritated motions. I wanted to defend myself, to say I was doing my best, but instead, I just nodded and muttered, "Sorry." It wasn't always like this. When we first got married 3 years ago, Claire used to laugh at my awkward attempts at housework. She'd tease me, playfully, and then show me the right way to do things. Now, it seems like everything I do annoys her. Just yesterday, I was out mowing the lawn. It was sweltering, and I was drenched in sweat by the time I finished the backyard. Claire came outside, her face tight with irritation. "You missed a spot," she said, pointing to a small patch near the fence. "And why are you mowing in that pattern? It looks ridiculous." I wiped the sweat from my forehead, feeling a mix of frustration and defeat. "I'll fix it," I replied, my voice flat. As I pushed the mower back to take care of the missed patch, I couldn't help but think about how different things used to be. Back then, Claire and I would tackle yard work together on weekends, laughing and joking around. Now, it feels like I can't do anything right in her eyes. It's not just about the chores either. She criticizes the decisions I make at work, how I dress, even how I talk to our friends. The other day, I bought groceries without asking her first. You'd think I'd committed a major crime from the way she reacted. "Whole wheat pasta. Really, Gavin?" Claire's voice was laced with disdain as she rummaged through the grocery bags. "And generic brand cereal? God, do you even think before you do anything?" I stood there, still holding my keys, feeling like I'd been slapped. I was just trying to save us some money," I stammered, caught off guard. She rolled her eyes. "Well, next time, don't think. Just ask me first." As I put the groceries away, feeling small and useless, something clicked. This wasn't just a passing mood or stress. This had become our marriage. When did my wife turn into someone so harsh and critical? And when did I become the person who just takes it without saying anything? I was mulling over these thoughts when my phone buzzed. It was a text from my sister, Nina. We hadn't talked much since the funeral, both of us processing our grief in our own ways. Her message caught me off guard. "Hey, little bro, by 2 minutes. I'm back in town. Can we catch up soon? Miss you." I stared at the screen, a wave of emotions rushing through me. Part of me was eager to reconnect with Nina, someone who knew me before everything fell apart. But another part of me was anxious. What would she think of the man I've become? As I typed out a reply to Nina, I could hear Claire in the kitchen, muttering under her breath about how I'd bought the wrong brand of coffee. I hit send on a simple "sure, let's meet up," and for the first time in months, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe talking to Nina would help me understand everything that's been going wrong. I just wish I knew when things started to fall apart and why I've let it go on for so long. Now let's check Claire's side. "Hey there, I'm Claire." Some days, I can barely stand to look at Gavin. It's like he forgot how to be a man after we got married. I thought I was marrying a partner, someone who'd challenge me, someone who would make life exciting. Instead, I got this. This morning, I woke up to the sound of Gavin bumbling around in the kitchen. I dragged myself out of bed, already irritated, and walked in to find him attempting to make pancakes. The kitchen was a complete disaster. Batter splattered everywhere, eggshells on the floor, and a burnt smell hanging in the air. "What are you doing?" I snapped, rubbing my temples in frustration. Gavin turned to me with a sheepish smile. "I wanted to surprise you with breakfast." I glanced at the chaos, batter on the counter, eggshells scattered on the floor, and then back at his hopeful face. A surge of disappointment, or maybe anger, rose up inside me. I couldn't even tell anymore. "Well, congratulations. I'm surprised at how much extra work you've made for me." His face fell, and for a moment, I felt a flicker of guilt. But really, who makes this much mess over something as simple as pancakes? I grabbed a cloth and started cleaning up, muttering under my breath. "I'm sorry, Claire." "I'll clean it up," Gavin said, reaching for the cloth. I yanked it out of his reach. "No, you've done enough. Just go get ready for work or something." He shuffled out of the kitchen, and as I wiped the counter, I couldn't stop thinking about how things used to be. When we first got married, Gavin's clumsy, romantic gestures were charming. Now, they only highlight how inadequate he feels to me. It's not just at home either. Last week, we went to his company's dinner party. I spent hours getting ready, wanting to look perfect and make a good impression. And Gavin? He showed up in a wrinkled shirt and a mismatched tie. When Gavin's boss came over to chat at the dinner party, Gavin fumbled through the conversation, missing a perfect chance to talk about his recent successes. Afterward, on the drive home, I couldn't hold it in any longer. Why didn't you speak up about your work? I demanded. Do you even want that promotion? Gavin's hands tightened on the steering wheel. I just froze. You know I'm not good at that stuff. I scoffed, frustration bubbling over. Well, you better get good at it. We can't afford for you to miss opportunities like that. The rest of the drive was filled with tense silence. I stared out the window, wondering how I ended up here. I used to have dreams, you know? I wanted to travel the world, live adventurously. Now I'm stuck playing cheerleader to a man who can't even cheer for himself. Maybe that's why I started talking to Ryan. He's a dad from our kids' playgroup, and he's everything Gavin isn't. Confident, ambitious, exciting. We've been texting for months, and recently, things have gotten more intense. I know it's wrong. I do. But when Ryan tells me I'm beautiful, when he listens to me talk about my dreams without that blank, uninterested look Gavin always gives me, I feel alive again. I feel seen. Yesterday, while Gavin was at work, Ryan and I met for coffee. We talked for hours, about everything and nothing. His eyes lit up as he shared his plans to start a new tech company, his passion and excitement contagious. As he spoke, I found myself sharing my own old business ideas, surprised that the spark of ambition was still alive in me. As we were leaving, Ryan touched my arm lightly. You're incredible, Claire. Don't let those dreams die. I felt a jolt at his touch, a flutter in my stomach that I hadn't felt in years. For a moment, I let myself imagine a different life. One where I was more than just a wife and mother. A life where I was appreciated, challenged, excited. But reality came rushing back as soon as I got home, just in time to start dinner, slipping back into the routine of my life with Gavin. As I chopped vegetables, I couldn't stop thinking about Ryan, about the way he looked at me. The connection was undeniable, and the contrast with Gavin felt sharper than ever. Now let's check from Gavin's side. Later, my sister Nina arrived. I hadn't seen her since the funeral, and the moment she stepped through the door, her hug felt tight and familiar, like no time had passed. But Nina didn't miss a thing. You look different, she said, her eyes scanning my face, searching for something beneath the surface. I tried to smile at Nina, but it felt forced. We settled into the living room, and I could feel her eyes on me, quietly observing every exchange between Claire and me. Claire was her usual charming self, but her voice carried a sharpness that had become the norm. I didn't think much of it, until I saw Nina's eyebrows furrow with concern. After about an hour, Claire excused herself to run some errands. The moment the door closed behind her, Nina turned to me with a serious expression. Okay, little brother, what's going on with you two? I blinked, caught off guard. What do you mean? Nina leaned in, her voice gentle but firm. Gavin, I've known you my whole life. The way you and Claire interact, it's not healthy. You're walking on eggshells around her. A knot tightened in my stomach. It's not that bad. We're just going through a rough patch. Nina shook her head, eyes full of concern. No, Gavin, this isn't just a rough patch. Let's break this down, okay? What's really happening here? I hesitated, feeling the weight of everything I'd been suppressing, unsure of where to even start. Over the next few hours, Nina and I delved into a deep, often uncomfortable conversation about relationships. She pointed out specific things she'd noticed, things I hadn't even questioned anymore. When Claire criticized the way you made coffee, you immediately apologized and offered to remake it. But Gavin, there was nothing wrong with the coffee. That's not compromise, that's submission. Nina explained concepts like gaslighting and emotional manipulation, sharing examples from her own past relationships. Remember my ex, Tom? He used to make me feel crazy for having normal emotions. Claire's doing the same to you when she dismisses your feelings. We talked about respect, about how a healthy partnership should lift both people up instead of tearing one down. When was the last time Claire complimented you or supported your decisions? She asked, her voice gentle but piercing. At first, I found myself defending Claire, making excuses for her behavior. She was stressed, overwhelmed, going through her own rough patch. But as Nina continued, I started to see the patterns I'd been blind to for so long. Gavin, Nina said softly, being a good husband doesn't mean being a doormat. You've always been kind, but you've never let anyone treat you like this before. What changed? That question hit me hard, and I didn't have an answer. When had I started accepting this? When did I stop standing up for myself? I thought about the man I used to be, confident, self-assured. When had I started to lose myself? Nina didn't just point out the problems. She offered real advice, practical steps to take. Set boundaries, Gavin, she said. Communicate your feelings clearly and consider couples therapy. It's not about winning or losing. It's about creating a dynamic where both of you feel valued and heard. As we talked, I felt a rush of emotions. Sadness for how things had turned, anger at how much I'd put up with, fear of what might come next, but also, for the first time in a long while, a glimmer of hope. Nina wasn't telling me to leave Claire or to start a fight. She was encouraging me to rediscover my self-worth and focus on building a healthier relationship. Start small, she advised, her voice steady. Next time Claire criticizes you unfairly, don't automatically apologize. Take a breath and calmly explain how her words make you feel. You deserve to be heard, too. Use I statements, Nina had advised. Say, I feel hurt when you speak to me that way, instead of, you're always criticizing me. After Nina left, I sat in the quiet house, my mind spinning. I reflected on all the times I'd let Claire's criticism slide, all the times I'd apologized for things that weren't my fault. I thought about the man I used to be and the shell I'd become. It hadn't been an overnight transformation, but Nina's visit had planted a seed of change within me. For the first time in months, I felt a flicker of my old self, a determination to reclaim my dignity and tackle the issues in my marriage head-on. I decided to focus on myself first. I began journaling, writing down instances where I felt disrespected, and planning how I could respond assertively but kindly. It felt empowering to put my thoughts on paper, to visualize a way forward that didn't involve just bending to Claire's will. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I was ready to take those first steps toward a healthier relationship, both with Claire and with myself. The idea seemed simple, but I realized how long it had been since I stood up for myself in any meaningful way. Nina's advice gave me something I hadn't realized I needed, a path forward. I looked into local therapists, considering individual counseling to rebuild my confidence. But before I could put any of these plans into action, something happened that changed everything. It was late, and Claire thought I was asleep. I got up to grab a glass of water and noticed her in the living room, bathed in the glow of her phone. She was texting someone, and my heart sank as I realized this might be more than just a communication problem between us. As I stood there, hidden in the shadows, I felt a mix of anxiety and determination. I knew our issues ran deeper than I'd imagined, but the man I used to be was stirring within me, ready to confront whatever lay ahead. This time, though, I was armed with the wisdom Nina had shared. I was prepared for a difficult but necessary conversation about the future of our marriage, one that would address not just the surface problems but the deeper issues that had been festering for far too long. Now let's check Claire's side. He's different now. He doesn't take my jabs the way he used to. I first noticed it a few days after his sister's visit. I made a comment about the way he loaded the dishwasher, something that would usually make him apologize and redo it. But this time, he just looked at me coldly and said, "Do it yourself if you're so goddamn particular." I was so shocked that I didn't know how to respond. Where was the Gavin who would scramble to please me? Who did he think he was? As the days went by, I noticed more changes. He started making decisions without consulting me first, and he pushed back when I criticized him, his responses laced with sarcasm and barely concealed anger. It felt like I was living with a stranger, and I didn't like it one bit. Last night, things came to a head. We were in the middle of our usual argument about his lack of ambition at work. I could feel the tension rising, but this time, I wasn't sure how to handle it. Instead of backing down like he usually would, he stood his ground, and I could see the frustration boiling just beneath the surface. I was in the middle of telling him how he needed to step up and be more of a provider when he snapped. "Cut it off, Claire," he roared, slamming his fist on the table. I flinched, paralyzed by shock. "I'm sick of your constant nagging and criticism. You want to talk about being a provider? How about you get off your bum and contribute something other than complaints to this household?" His words hit me like a punch to the gut, and for a moment, I could only stare at him in disbelief. This wasn't the Gavin I knew. It felt like I was facing a completely different person. I could feel my heart racing as I tried to process what was happening. I felt like I'd been slapped. This wasn't my pushover husband. This was someone else, someone angry, someone fed up. I tried to regain control of the situation, falling back on my usual tactics. How dare you speak to me like that? I hissed. If you can't handle a little constructive criticism. Constructive? Gavin laughed bitterly. There's nothing constructive about you tearing me down every chance you get. You're toxic, Claire, and I'm done letting you poison our lives. The word toxic hit me like a bucket of cold water. How dare he? I'm not toxic. I'm just trying to make him better, to push him to be the man I need him to be. Anger bubbled up inside me, hot and familiar. You ungrateful a-hole. I spat, the words tumbling out before I could stop myself. I could feel the heat of the argument escalating, and for the first time, I wasn't sure how it would end. After everything I've done for you, everything you've done? Gavin cut me off, his voice dripping with contempt. You mean like making me feel worthless? Like cheating on me? I froze. How did he know? I opened my mouth to deny it, but the look in his eyes told me it was useless. That's right, Gavin continued, his voice low and dangerous. I know about Ryan. I know everything. And you know what? I'm done. He stormed out of the room, leaving me standing there, my world crumbling around me. For the first time in our marriage, I realized I'd lost control. Gavin wasn't just setting boundaries. He was tearing down the entire framework of our relationship. As I sank onto the couch, shaking with a mixture of anger and fear, I realized that the dynamic of our marriage had fundamentally changed, and I had no idea how to handle this new, assertive Gavin. I pulled out my phone, my fingers hovering over Ryan's name in my contacts. But as I sat there, contemplating my next move, a small voice in the back of my mind whispered an uncomfortable truth. I'd messed up big time. Just then, a notification lit up my screen. A message from Ryan, but I couldn't bring myself to open it. I felt a wave of guilt wash over me, reminding me of how far I'd strayed from the person I used to be. Little did I know, my world was about to come crashing down around me even further. Now let's check Gavin's side. For once, I didn't give a shit if she yelled or cried or threatened to leave. I was beyond caring. The past few weeks since Nina's visit had opened my eyes, and I was done with Claire's bullshit. I'd gathered every shred of evidence about her affair with Ryan. Text messages, emails, credit card statements showing hotel bookings. I had it all. And tonight, I was going to nuke our sham of a marriage out of existence. Claire waltzed in from another girl's night out, reeking of expensive perfume and guilt. I was waiting in the living room, a glass of whiskey in my hand and fire in my veins. Sit down, I growled. We need to talk. She rolled her eyes, clearly not reading the room. Can it wait? I'm tired. Sit down. I could feel the tension crackling in the air, and for the first time in a long while, I was ready to fight back. Each word was laced with venom. Her eyes widened as she finally noticed my expression. She sat, her face a mixture of confusion and growing fear. I tossed a folder onto the coffee table, and it landed with a satisfying thud. Open it, I said. Claire hesitated, then slowly reached for the folder. As she flipped through the contents, her face drained of color. Gavin, I can explain. Explain what? How you've been screwing Ryan behind my back for months. The accusation hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. I could see her struggling to find the right words, but all I felt was a burning need for the truth. How you've been lying to my face while treating me like crap? My voice was eerily calm, masking the rage boiling inside me. She tried to interrupt, but I was on a roll. You know what's funny? I actually blamed myself. I thought I wasn't good enough, that I needed to try harder. What a joke. Tears started forming in Claire's eyes. Gavin, please, we can work this out. Work what out? I laughed bitterly. The fact that you're a cheating 304, or that you've spent years manipulating me and tearing me down? Her tears turned to anger. How dare you call me that? If you were man enough. I slammed my glass down, cutting her off. No, you don't get to spin this on me. Not anymore. I'm done with your manipulation, your criticism, your mind games. We're done. The finality of my words hung in the air, and for the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of clarity and strength. Claire's face contorted with rage and desperation. You can't just end our marriage like this. What about everything we've built? Built? I scoffed. You've spent years tearing me down, Claire. The only thing you've built is a mountain of lies. I stood up, towering over her. I want you out of this house. Tonight. Pack your crap and get out. You can't be serious, she sputtered. Where am I supposed to go? I shrugged, feeling a strange sense of calm amidst my anger. Not my problem anymore. You made your bed. Now lie in it. Preferably somewhere else. As the reality of the situation sank in, Claire's composure crumbled. The mask of entitlement slipped away, revealing the panic beneath. For once, she wasn't the one in control. It felt liberating. She started sobbing, begging, promising to change. But I was immune to her tears now. "Save it," I said, my voice cold. "You've got an hour to pack. Anything left behind gets burned." As I walked out of the room, leaving Claire a crying mess on the couch, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. For the first time in years, I was standing up for myself. And it felt amazing. The life I'd known was over, burned to ashes by Claire's betrayal and my own awakening. But as I poured myself another whiskey, I realized something. From these ashes, I could build something new, something better. A life where I wasn't anyone's punching bag or doormat. And that life started tonight, with Claire's exit from my home and my world. I had no idea what the future held, but I was ready to embrace it, free from the chains of my past. Now let's check Claire's side. He actually had the nerve to tell me to leave. Me. I couldn't believe it. Gavin, my pushover husband, had somehow grown a spine and kicked me out. As I threw clothes into a suitcase, my mind raced. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. I thought I could control the situation, maybe cry and manipulate Gavin into forgiving me, but he was like a stranger, cold, determined. When I realized he wasn't budging, panic set in. Where would I go? I called Ryan, certain he'd take me in, but his response chilled me to the bone. "Claire, I'm sorry, but I can't get involved in this mess. My wife, she found out. I have to think about my family." "But I am your family." I screamed into the phone. "You said you loved me." The line went dead. Ryan, my safety net, had abandoned me. With nowhere else to go, I swallowed my pride and called my parents. Dad's voice was gruff when he answered. "Claire? Dad, it's me. I need help," I stammered, my voice trembling. The reality of my situation sank in deeper with every word. "Claire? Gavin called us. He told us everything." My stomach dropped. "Daddy, please. I need a place to stay. Just for a few days." The silence on the other end seemed to stretch for an eternity. Finally, my father spoke, his voice heavy with disappointment. "No, Claire. You made your bed. Now lie in it. Don't call us again until you've gotten your life together." The dial tone echoed in my ear. My own father had disowned me. The next few days were a blur. I stayed at a cheap motel, using the last of my personal savings. Word spread quickly in our small town. Former friends crossed the street to avoid me. My social media was flooded with angry messages and judgmental comments. I tried reaching out to Ryan again, but he blocked my number. His wife had apparently told everyone about our affair. He was facing his own disgrace, his reputation in tatters. Sitting alone in that dingy motel room, the full weight of my actions crashed down on me. I'd lost everything. My husband, my home, my family, my friends, my dignity. All for what? A few thrills with Ryan? As I stared at the peeling wallpaper and flickering light, I couldn't help but feel utterly trapped by my choices. I had once thought I was chasing happiness, but now it felt more like I was running away from myself. The excitement I had felt with Ryan had faded into a hollow ache, a reminder of what I had given up. The thrill of sneaking around and the fleeting moments of attention paled in comparison to the stability and love Gavin had offered me. With each passing hour, the realization sank deeper. I had burned bridges I could never rebuild. I picked up my phone, scrolling through old photos of Gavin and me, laughing together, sharing moments that now felt like a different lifetime. Tears streamed down my face as I confronted the ugly truth of my decisions. I could blame Gavin for our problems, but ultimately, I was the one who had betrayed him. Loneliness engulfed me, and the weight of my decisions settled heavily on my shoulders. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Gavin's face, hurt, betrayed, and resolute. I had taken everything for granted, and now I was paying the price. The life I had tried to build with Ryan felt like a distant fantasy, one that had crumbled the moment I lost Gavin. I thought about Gavin, about how I had treated him over the years, the constant criticism, the manipulation, the cheating. I had taken a kind, loving man and nearly broken him. And for what? Because I was bored? Because I felt unfulfilled? Now I was truly alone. No Gavin to apologize to. No Ryan to run to. No family to support me. I'd burned every bridge, destroyed every relationship. As I stared at my reflection in the grimy motel mirror, I barely recognized myself. How had I become this person? This cheater? This liar? This manipulator? The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. I'd done this to myself. My choices, my actions had led me here. And now I had to live with the consequences. I collapsed onto the bed, sobs racking my body. The life I'd known was gone, shattered by my own selfishness and cruelty. And the worst part? I had no one to blame but myself. I had taken everything for granted, mistaking stability for boredom, love for complacency. I could see it clearly now. My discontent had blinded me to the beautiful life I had with Gavin. I had chased fleeting moments of excitement, only to find that they left me emptier than before. As I lay there, tears soaking the pillow, I felt a flicker of something I hadn't felt in a long time. Remorse. It was a painful, heavy feeling, but it was real. Maybe this was the first step toward understanding the magnitude of my mistakes. I knew I had to change, to find a way to make amends, but the path to redemption felt impossibly steep. As I lay there, broken and alone, I realized the true cost of my actions. I'd lost not just my marriage and my family, but my self-respect. The road ahead looked long and lonely, a fitting punishment for the pain I'd caused. In that moment, I would have given anything to turn back time, to be the wife Gavin deserved. But it was too late. All I could do now was face the harsh reality of the life I'd created for myself. Alone, disgraced, and filled with regret. I had choices to make, but they felt insurmountable. The comfort of denial was gone, replaced by the cold weight of accountability. The memories of better times flickered through my mind. Laughter over dinner, quiet moments shared on the couch, Gavin's warm smile that had once made me feel cherished. Those moments now felt like cruel reminders of what I had squandered. I longed for a way to reach out, to reconnect, to apologize. But I knew it wasn't that simple. I needed to start from within, to rebuild the person I had lost. I had to confront my choices, understand the patterns that had led me here, and find a way to forgive myself, even if it felt impossible. The first step would be to seek help, to talk to someone who could guide me through this mess. As the night wore on, I felt a flicker of determination ignite within me. This was my life, and I had to own it, even the broken parts. Maybe, just maybe, there was a path to redemption. But for now, I had to sit with my pain, acknowledge it, and prepare to face whatever came next. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.